What I want to do tonight, I imagine at some point in time, people are going to have to turn over, and even people that are zocheh to have two different kitchens, it's always helpful to know how to what to kosher. At some point, you're going to need to kosher things. Some of you maybe are having Pesach for the first time in your home. Shashi, you're moving out for the week?
Not moving out, but essentially not really.
Not anything at home. Yeah, okay. But you have to kosher something. You got a breakfast.
Yeah,
You got to. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Pesach, and we're going to just make reference also to just the regular koshering, and we'll go back and forth a little bit. So let's actually begin. A long time ago, you'll recall, we discussed this idea of when it comes to chametz on Pesach. First of all, many chumras in the book exist for Pesach. There are many people. I know there are many people where if anything, a utensil or food touches the ground, they won't eat it. There are people who will not even buy any processed food over Pesach, just any vegetables that can be peeled, except for meat. You have to buy meat. And there's a lot of different minhagim that families take on. Some who won't at each other's homes over Pesach. It's just, when it comes to Pesach, there's almost no rules. There's almost, no limits how far people will go. But we have to also make a distinction between what's halacha, and what's an additional, minhag and chumrah. And that's what we're going to be talking a lot about over the next couple of weeks. So we know that it is an isur d'oraisa to eat chametz on Pesach. Isur is quite severe; it's kareit, and therefore, because of the severity of the isur, that probably is one of the reasons why we go to such an extreme over ensuring that we remove al chametz, as opposed to, let's say, the pork. Well, we never have pork in our home to begin with, so it's not such a problem. As opposed to when it comes to chametz on Pesach, since chametz is permissible for the vast majority of the year, conversation another time. If chametz is so bad, why not make it usher all year, right? But for this 1 week, for these 8 days, there's something bad about chametz, and therefore it's much more difficult to remove from our home because we're used to having it in our homes. And you'll recall, I think, even from a halachic concept, how come even though it is forbidden to eat on Yom Kippur, and the isser is kares, if you eat on Yom Kippur, we don't go to such extremes. We don't say that food is muksa. We don't say we're allowed to feed a child or feed someone who's infirmed food on Yom Kippur, yet the transgression of eating on Yom Kippur is also quite severe, like eating chametz on Pesach. Yet on Pesach, we go to the nth degree, and you remove it, and we sell it, and we don't own it. And remember, what's the reason why? Why is it on Yom Kippur, even though the punishment, the onesh, is kares, we don't go to as crazy of an extreme, and food's not muksa on Yom Kippur. Supposed to on Pesach, what do we say? We say, don't own it, you can't possess it, you can't have it, you can't. What's the reason why we go to such an extreme? Because, very good, on Pesach you can still eat. So once you can eat something and not something else, from the psychological perspective, when a person is in eating mode, as we often are a little bit too much over Pesach, then that's where you have to create larger fences. As opposed to in Yom Kippur, it's called bidilei nafshes, or psychologically, we've created this fence when it comes to food, and therefore we don't eat, we don't interact, nothing to food, and therefore we're able to withhold the eating part of Yom Kippur, and therefore Chazal didn't even feel it was necessary to create a fence of making food muktzah on Yom Kippur. So let's begin. We're going to read together the Pesach primer page, and I have, again, extra copies if people do need. So, chametz is a severe prohibition, therefore the rabbis agreed that chametz is never annulled, meaning it's not batel b'shishim, it's not batel in shishim, it's not batel in elef, it is never batel. The smallest crumb of chametz will render an enormous pot of soup non-kosher, or chametz. That is why we take extra precaution in our kitchen to prevent any amount of chametz from coming into contact with food. Please note, whether there's a concern that there may be some leftover crumbs that remain stuck to a surface that may accidentally come into contact with food, it is best to use bleach or other poisonous cleaner to clean the surface to render any remnant non-edible. Even if plastic can be kosher for year-round. Some opinions do not rely on koshering them for Pesach use. We will see that when it comes to koshering for Pesach, things that we might kosher during the year, for Pesach we will say you're not allowed to kosher it for Pesach. Okay, so let's begin. Countertops and sinks. One is required to kosher the countertops and sinks for Pesach. Refer to the kosher, your own kitchen guide for countertops which can be koshered. For Pesach, some opinions are strict, not to kosher plastic coated and formica countertops. The custom is to clean the surface thoroughly and to cover it with heavy covering that will not rip easily, such as thick aluminum foil, heavy-duty plastic or vinyl, etc. And in fact, we do not kosher most countertops, especially those like cheaper type of countertops that have formica or have that a fifth of an inch covering of this fake this plastic chazarai on it that most of us have unless you have a custom-made kitchen. And what do? We cover it. And that is now if you're going to cover your countertops, you don't need to pour boiling hot water over them. That's just silly, right? Because you're going to have a cover to it. I once heard that there actually is a preference to at least a quarter-inch thick cover for one's countertops because you want to ensure that it's like kedei netila, like if there be some type of penetration, that surface penetration is going to be in your countertop or something hot, and therefore just covering it with a thinner like aluminum foil or a Mac tack would not be sufficient. It probably should be a little bit thicker than that, and that is what we really recommend. The best thing to do is that corrugated plastic is probably the best thing to use. It weighs nothing. I am not corrugated plastic is for sure the best thing to use. Don't ask me what I was thinking when we moved into the home that we're in now. We've been in for about 10 and a half years. Don't ask me what I was thinking. I just didn't know. I took the measurements at the Home Depot, and I have this inch thick wooden countertops. They are just a disaster to carry up. I have to put them on only one shelf at the top of my basement and to schlep them up the stairs. By that point in time, I usually have to call Brian Kleinberg because my back is in so much pain. I don't know what I was thinking. And now, I'm going to move or whatever, so why don't we buy new ones for it? Of course, I'm still shoving those large countertops. So definitely, but also for a sukkah.
Corrugated plastic is way down
$10,
$10.
it's nothing. Yeah, it's furnished.
It's hard to get home now.
Why?
Because in Home Depot they sell it in an 8-foot sheet.
So you have to cut it with an X-Acto knife.
Yeah, but I tried to take it home in my van, so I taped it. It was too long for the van, so I taped it in the middle of driving. The tape popped, and I can't see it.
How many feet? You can't, and they won't cut it for you there?
It's really, you could cut it if you sort of know your measurements. It takes a second. You cut it with.
So really, you should probably cut it at the store. Bring it, buy it, cut it.
I didn't know my.
Right, yeah. I realize that. I get that.
For you,
right.
You can go and it's a $10.
I should probably do that.
You don't need the
okay.
Seriously, $10.
That's worth it. That is for sure worth it. $10.
It's the best investment ever.
And the truth is, you can actually use. Now, this is way off topic. Great corrugated plastic for your walls for sukkah. I know the listeners do that. They take corrugated plastic blocks that too now. They take corrugated plastic. They frame it with a little bit of wood, and it weighs nothing. So, anyways, whatever.
Sometimes if you have ugly counters, they're actually nicer than the counters.
Well, that's the thing. Our counters are whiter. Oh no, we got new counters last year, 2 years ago. But yes, that's right. They actually can be whiter. That's right, than your counters. Okay, sinks. If the sink is made of a material which cannot be koshered, we'll explain that in a minute. The sink should first be cleaned thoroughly. One should use a dishpan or some other type of insert that will prevent the kitchenware from coming in direct contact with the non-kosher for Pesach sink. There's a hole in the insert to allow drainage. Some authorities are concerned that the hot water may back up into the insert. Others are not concerned. Always use bleach or some other type of or other caustic liquid that would render any food particles that may be left in the drain area non-edible. So what generally we say is if your sinks, and this is the vast majority of sinks, are made out of stainless steel. That's pretty common in Thornhill. There was a time we were using almost like a ceramic or something, but I don't think people do that anymore. People usually have these stainless steel sinks, very easy to kosher. How do you kosher them? You don't use them. That's the number one rule, by the way. You cannot. If you want to kosher something, the first thing you do is you don't use it for 24 hours. Once you've already made it non-ben yomo, not 24 hours, then you can kosher things. So that's where you kind of have to plan and say, listen, I'm koshering my sinks. What days? The first Seder is Monday night, so you got to go. I mean, I don't see how you can go kosher Pesach after Shabbos. I mean, it's impossible. essentially. You're going to have to go kosher, if you only have one kitchen, you're going to have to kosher Pesach before that Shabbos. That Shabbos Agula, you're going to have to kosher Pesach food. I don't really see any other way around it. It's like not home for Yantif.
Is it not using it for 24 hours or not using it with hot water?
Okay, so the truth is, if you're going to use it for cold, it's going to be okay. But if it's going to be cold, it's fine. It's true. It's really not using it for hot for 24 hours. But you don't want there to be some type of stain of chametz that's going to sit around. So if it's things that are going to be easily, not disposable, drainable, then that would be okay. But you don't want to have chametz particles that were cold sitting in your sink for 24 hours, because that could be a problem to kosher. So if it's something, make sure that if you're going to pour, I'm trying to think, your chicken soup, which is cold out of the fridge that you want to get rid of, make sure you do a very good job and put it down that sink. So that's kind of why we say really better not to use the sinks at all for 24 hours. If you're really stuck and you got to use a sink, you can use your washroom sink, and you can use the sink in the basement, by the laundry room as well. That's probably the concern of using your kitchen sink during that 24-hour period.
So what's wrong with doing it Saturday night or something like that?
How are you going to be ready? You're going to kosher? You're going to be able to cook everything for Pesach in 1 day, 2 days? You could. Yeah, not halachically. I think just practically. Because I'll tell you why. If you have to wait 24 hours, that means you can't kosher until Sunday night. How are you going to do that? Right? If Shabbos you're going to eat chametz, I don't see how is it possible to cook for Pesach. I don't see how it's cooked for Pesach. I don't know. You've done this more than I have.
Unfortunate enough.
Yeah. You Pesach kitchen.
So I was thinking what you're saying. I was thinking if you feel like using your upstairs sink as well, then you could do a Saturday night because you're not really cooking.
Because you're not really cooking.
You just have an extra sink. So
Right. My parents have that. Parents have 2 kitchens, and they actually make. My mother begins and koshers the basement, cooks, and then later, closer to Pesach, she'll kosher upstairs and switch everything over. This way, it allows her to have everything, one kosher Pesach and one
so in that case, it could be.
And that's way, right, in that case, she could have the Shabbos, right. Okay.
You could be cooking.
What?
You could be cooking, but if you just don't use the sink.
How do you do that? How can you cook without a sink?
You could wash things in it. If you're without putting it in. You don't put anything down.
Kind of hard.
I don't know.
Right, you're not washing. You're not using any real pots or pans. Right, if you're only cooking aluminum,
everything plastic.
I would be. I'll tell you. I'd be very worried. I would not recommend that. Take a look at the step-by-step guide to koshering your kitchen. I don't know if you have that second page, right? So he says here, clean all surfaces for koshering. Wait 24 hours from last use with hot or warm food or liquid. There is a problem with having cold. Now again, most liquids aren't going to be real chametz, right? But still, you should really avoid using your sinks at all with anything for that 24-hour period. It's definitely advisable just to do that. We take Scotch tape, put a big X, over it, you cover it, garbage bag, right? And then hopefully that's enough to make it clear, though it's not always enough to make it clear. So, and what you do is, how do you kosher it? So you boil water in a pot or a kettle, and once, so I remember this, what he says here. Someone asked me about this. So I'll read you what it says here, and I'll make one comment. Boil water in a pot or kettle with wide opening, and pour the heated water over a hot stone or piece of metal so that it remains boiling over the countertops and sinks. What you could do is you can actually just pour with concentric circles, meaning, so if I have a kumkum, how do you say kumkum in English? Like when there's teapots, there's a kettle, right? Right? So if a kettle's going, so let's say it's one of those plug-in kettles, and when it goes pling, it means it's boiling. So it's still boiling for that little bit of time, and you do have a few seconds with this boiling hot water. The problem is it cools down. Once you lose the boiling hot water, you can't use it for koshering. So then you do it again, and it could take you a few times to ensure that you're actually cleaning your entire area properly. So the advantage he wants to say here, and it's true, if you put a hot stone, which you can heat up in your oven, or a piece of metal, is that it continues to give heat to that water that you're pouring. So because after a few seconds, the water has actually come down in temperature. That water can't be used for kashering. So if you have something which is hot there, it'll help maintain that hot temperature as well. But you don't need to do that. It's kind of, it'll allow you maybe to get through an entire kettle, thank you, of water for kashering purposes. Otherwise, generally speaking, you probably need to do it twice. You do one sink, that probably should be sufficient. Okay, so that's a great question. The truth is, it actually really doesn't, because by boiling it, you're kind of like kashering it. So, I mean, you could designate, this is my kashering kettle. Right, this is a kettle that only used for kashering. Really, you don't really need to do that. It's best if you can designate a kettle just for kashering. You don't really need to, because the idea is that you're boiling water in there, right? So boiling water is going to kind of kasher anyways. So.
If you're using a kettle that is a Pesach kettle, is that like if you turn on the sink that hasn't like?
No, but I have a Pesach kettle, so I've heated it up, and I'm going to now pour it over.
I know, but like to pour water in it is like a problem that you haven't kashered the sink handle. Like you have like a metal sink handle, like to turn on the water.
No, but it's going to be, first of all, it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold, and it's just water. Yeah. There are people that want to. You don't need to do this. You know these the spouts. Yeah. There are people who actually replace them for Pesach. Because what I don't understand that, because first of all, no food can get in there because it's like against gravity, and there's like really small holes with the filter. And two, if there's been splashing that somehow got in there, I can't imagine that it was even that hot, right? Like. Generally speaking, the hotter stuff, like not up.
No, but on the outside, like we do that. We would place our.
Really, it gets that hot? You really think that it's possible?
I don't know. We just place that.
Yeah, I don't know if you.
We need to, but.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to do that. What's it called? It's like it costs like $2.99 in Canadian Tire to replace.
Only if it fits your thing. We keep one stuff
But
for Pesach.
You keep a toilet from Pesach and you switch it. Oh wow.
Maybe we don't have to.
You don't really have to do it. What?
I'm like thinking about my thing. I'm like, there's no way that's $2.99.
Right. That's not
Why?
Because now faucets.
Are so expensive.
You're talking about a faucet. It's like.
Really? Oh, that little cheap thing at the end.
Piece isn't like.
Oh, I see what you're
Now I
saying.
have a pull-out thing.
Right. That's true. You're right.
There's no
even cheap piece at the end.
Yeah.
You're probably right. Yeah, you're right. I got it.
There's nothing like that.
I have like we replaced our thing. We have a Moen, but it's like it's a pretty cheap Moen.
Right, so now
but now they've become very fancy. You're right. Those are fancier ones.
more expensive than the thing.
Right. Yeah, they're fortune. That's right. Yeah, so those you get replaced. Yeah. There's no way. You never hear people say, "Oh my goodness, you have to kasher that." That's So it could be, by the way, that when it was $2.99. Okay, so replace it. Like who cares? It's $2.99, right? Doesn't really matter. But now you have to call a plumber to replace it. That's already, I think, a little much. Okay, that's a good point. For surfaces that cannot be kashered, avoid placing any hot or warm water directly onto the surface. Additionally, the sink can be filled with hot water and brought to a boil with a commercial immersion heater. No one does that. For sinks that cannot be kashered, you can always insert a rack. So you could always put in a plastic insert into your sink. You generally will only see this in places like New York, where they only have one sink. In Toronto, obviously most people in New York today, everyone has these two sinks. You have some of the grandparents in older apartments, and they have only one sink. So what do? They usually just have these plastic inserts, and they just rotate them during the year too, for that matter, for fleishiks and for milchik. So for Pesach, that same issue. What do you do about the drain? The drain size, most people have stainless steel, so it can probably be kashered. Just make sure maybe that when you're kashering your sink that it's actually loose. Because if the drain is tightly placed in there, the water's actually not going to hit it with heat. It might not get there at all. So that might be have to be a little bit careful. Make sure your spout is your drain is being kashered properly. And then sometimes you get the drains are pretty gross, like after I don't know. So if they've become really disgusting, that might not be a bad thing to replace. For Pesach, there could be, a lot of, I would say a lot, there'll be food particles there, unless you want to really clean it properly, which is always recommended to do that on a regular basis, because hygiene is important. Okay, step 2 is the next thing. So now that we've koshered our sinks and we've koshered our countertops, we have a stovetop. So stovetops have an advantage and a disadvantage. Most stovetops are enamel, and enamel cannot be koshered. Therefore, clean it well with bleach or any type of cleaner and cover it with thick aluminum foil. Place a metal cover, a blech, over the grates. Turn on the burners for high 10 minutes. So you do not, that is not the policy. These guys are a little machmir. That is not the policy of the COR or the OU. All you need to do is just take your elements and blast them till they turn red. You know, when you have an element on for a good, it probably only takes 5 minutes, 6 minutes. There's like this red glow on the elements. That is libun gamor. You've koshered your elements. I recommend not to do all 4 at the same time because it's very hot to reach over and shut them off. So you might want to do 2 and 2. That's just a practical tip, not necessarily a halachic tip. But I remember doing it, having all 4 on and having to like kind of be very careful trying to shut them off. So, okay. Your ceramic, the enamel, the white stuff that's in between the elements, cannot be koshered. You probably should cover it with aluminum foil. Other people, I don't know if everyone does that. Otherwise, you just have to be very careful. You really should not have any food touch that at all. And in fact, during the year, I hate to say it, during the year, it's probably not kosher as well because you're having fleshik and milk regularly, and it can't be koshered, and you're not koshering it. So if you ever have like making pasta and hot pasta flies out of your pot and hits your enamel, that white thing in between the elements, you probably should throw it out and not use it. You shouldn't rest hot spoons and stuff on that enamel either.
If you do have like a metal.
But if you have a metal, so metal can be kosher. Metal's kosher. Glass is going to be a problem. You know, those glass. It's become very popular today. The tempered glass. It looks really nice. Holding flat. It looks really nice, but it's a big problem for Pesach. What are you going to do for kosher for Pesach? Because it's glass. And as we're going to see, when it comes to glass for Pesach, there are many poskim which do not want you to, will allow glass to be kosher during the year, but not for Pesach. There are those that do permit koshering for Pesach. I'm definitely not going to go on record for that. We can talk later. What people do, they just buy, a lot of people will buy an element for Pesach and just plug it in. And not use it at all. Yeah.
You can't cover in between the burners, even though they're underneath, but...
No, because the actual element itself is glass.
Right. Even if you turn it on high.
But no, because there's glass.
What's the problem with cooking on it and it's not letting the food touch anywhere?
Because the pot shouldn't rest on something which isn't kosher Pesach. Because it's hot. Yeah.
What, you turn it on and it burns red?
It's glass. You don't put anything on glass.
Isn't it kind of like you're koshering the pot while you're burning it?
Yeah, no, because the problem is there's going to be that glass surface. That's the problem. Like if you can't kosher glass.
Not to use it?
It depends who you ask what the accepted opinion is. What it is. Yeah. I don't want to go on record what to do.
Turn it off.
Yeah, I'll turn it off after.
You have that?
A ceramic top, yeah.
Yeah, the ceramic top?
No,
Not the glass. Glass.
Yeah, glass.
Oh, your elements are glass. It's nice and flat. Right. So, okay. I mean, there are people who say you can kosher glass for Pesach. So I think that the CUR recommends, not doing that. I don't know if they say you can't, and they recommend not to. Yeah.
For people that will get another element?
Yeah, I know people get another element. Yeah. Here, stovetops. Where are we? On electric burners, sometimes it's possible that pot actually rests on top of the stovepat. Make sure everything is covered. Okay, fine. Electric Shabbos hot plates I'm not so interested in. Okay. In terms of Shabbos hot plates, it's very difficult to kasher blech. You're gonna have to, you have to like torch it. I don't see none really. Most people just get a new blech for Pesach.
What did you cover it?
You cover with aluminum foil.
Could you put that directly on an element?
I don't think you want to kill your element.
Wait, what? You don't
Or black?
cover
Black.
it? It's not like... What's wrong with that?
No, I don't.
I think putting it directly on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I don't know how safe that is. To cover your blech?
One of those things, you're not talking about the $1,000 cost. How much is a blech? It's like $15. So what?
Just get a blech. That's for shoveling.
Those are the you plug in.
Oh, so if you,
No. You're talking about a hot plate.
Yeah.
hot plate.
That's
Yeah.
what
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, a blech. A blech is like a metal sheet.
Oh,
If you have a hot plate too, you should not cover a hot plate with tinfoil.
Really?
It's dangerous. Yeah.
Oh, I think a lot of people
I
actually
think
do
everyone
that.
They
does.
do?
Even like during the year, I know people do it to keep it clean.
To keep it clean.
Yeah.
That makes no sense whatsoever. You're covering it the whole time to keep it clean, but it's
Like, well,
But there's
people
no
cover
hot
their
tub
couches.
what?
The same reason people like cover a lot of things. Just
I cover their sofas.
Yeah.
Only boobies do cover. Only boobies cover sofas in plastic. Have you ever seen like no one younger, under the age of 80 does that?
It's just easier to throw out a thing of foil and
Yeah,
You clean it.
No, and that you
It
can.
gets so dirty.
grilled
Yeah, because
cheese
if you
and
have
all.
like, they like things leak over.
Yeah, on your blech. Okay.
No, not on.
Yeah, on a hot plate. I know what you're talking about. A hot plate. A hot plate. The problem's gonna be,
You would cover that and then.
but that's not. I don't know if that's gonna be enough. You might have to do libud on that. Like, I don't, because if you put, you have to kosher it. I don't see how covering it with aluminum foil is gonna be sufficient.
Would you do boiling water first and then cover it?
I don't. No, you can only put anything where there's direct heat. You can never do irui. It's direct heat. So it's good any direct heat to kosher it. Covering with aluminum foil is not going to be sufficient.
even if it's always covered in aluminum foil and you never touch it.
You're saying that first, but it's so thin. It's a one. Meaning, if you want to tell me you put a quarter inch, a half an inch of aluminum foil, you're like, use a whole box every Shabbos aluminum foil. That's one thing, but otherwise, if it's just such a small amount, it's gonna be a problem. Anything that's direct heat needs to be kosher with direct heat. Yeah, you should get a new one for Pesach. Yeah, that's another expensive. Not so much money. The oven itself, I think today with, I don't know what oven Shoshi has in her new apartment, but I think the vast majority today of people have self-cleaning ovens, which makes life much easier in terms of koshering, in terms of the racks, in terms of the insides. Again, you don't use it for 24 hours. You do the self-clean, then you're good to go. And then you got it. There's a chazarai that sits there at the bottom. You just have to wipe it down. You cannot use easy off on self-clean ovens. It's dangerous. So you just blast it and wipe everything down. There are people who I have seen who are machmir that the door of the oven doesn't get as hot as the inside of the oven. And they cover the inside of their oven with aluminum foil. I have seen that. There was a time that was suggested for COR policy. I know many shuls. I know a lot of my friends down south from Lawrence do that. And Rabbi Taub did not feel that was necessary to cover the oven door. And you should wait 24 hours for koshering your oven. Yeah, sure. Just like anything.
Yeah, self-clean doesn't just do the self-clean.
Isn't the rule you always wait for 24 hours for everything to kosher? You're saying self-clean is so strong you don't have to wait 24 hours for it. I just assumed you needed to. Okay, no, it's a good question. It's a good question. I assumed. You use oven soft and you can't wait 24 hours to self-clean oven?
No, people usually even if people are using it, let's say for some office they just self-clean and not we assume it burns everything out.
Right. The truth is you don't really need to do that.
So you just have to turn it really high?
There's a self-clean fiber on a lot of that.
I know, but
I don't know. You can just, I don't know. The general practice is you always wait 24 hours for koshering. I'll double check that. I know my gut reaction is 24 hours. Meaning, you kosher by irui, kosher by irui. Meaning, once you're koshering, that meaning, the way you kosher a sink is equal to the way you kosher an oven. Just the fact that the oven seems 400 degrees hotter, it's because that's direct heat. So once it's the same way you'd have to wait for koshering anything, whether it's a pot, whether it's an oven, whether it's a sink, you have to wait 24 hours. So I don't see why it necessarily make a difference. Even though it appears this is more extreme, it's not really extreme, just because that heat is more extreme, so we need a more extreme way to kosher it. So, it's all relative. Okay. Oh, see? He even says here, self-cleaning ovens. Look at this. I didn't read this beforehand. The oven is effectively kosher for Pesach by running it through self-cleaning. It is strongly suggested to cover the oven door with heavy-duty aluminum foil. See, look at that. He even says that here. So I know that is suggested It's recommended. I would not say your house is not kosher Pesach without it, but it is suggested, and that's what it says. I know Rabbi did not say you needed to. I'm for sure. In terms of pots, frying pans, and silverware, there are very few people today that kosher things for Pesach. It's just not necessary to kosher. Most people have complete sets of dishes, of cutlery, for everything. There is a kosher at the end of this week or next week, that COR is coming to the shul to kosher things. If you have things that you really want to kosher, do not kosher it at home. It makes a big mess. It's a big headache. Bring it to the shul, bring it to a good south, wherever day they usually they kosher it probably next Sunday. It's a kosher day to go to south. There's one night this week at the shul, and next week at the shul. That's the best thing to do. And again, when you bring them, you gotta make sure you're not using them for 24 hours before you bring it, the frying pan or whatever it is. And again, not everything can be koshered. Depends on how it's made. So when it comes to glass, again, the prevailing opinion for Ashkenazim is that glass cannot be koshered for Pesach, which is the issue with the elements. Okay? For Sephardim, there are more opinions, much more to be lenient. And in fact, Sephardim perhaps even hold they don't even need to kosher glass at all for Pesach. So it's a pretty extreme for the Ashkenazim and the Sephardim. So there you go. But then again, when it comes to Pesach, you can't even eat in a Sephardi house because there's like kidneys everywhere. You have to be very careful. We have friends of ours who are Sephardim. They say, we don't use kidneys. You have to be very, very careful. There's so many things that are kidney today that the Sephardim are using. You have to be very careful to eat in a Sephardi house over Pesach. So, for Sephardi, just clean things properly. Do you kidney on Pesach?
I mean, like, he doesn't sound like he does, but his grandparents always come to him. Like, his mom's parents were on.
So
they don't even...
They don't even do it. What a waste.
I know.
The joke is, for Sephardim, they kidney on Pesach, but they have to say slichos for 40 days before Yom Kippur. So you got to wake up early for 40 days, you know what I mean? It's a trade-off. Right, yeah, right. So, it's okay. Gibros also, right? Gibros on Pesach, it's also something which... So we don't eat Gibros the first 2 days. The first 2 days? Yeah.
Okay.
So apparently, I always thought that it was like one of these diluted minhagim that went from 7 days to 2 days. But then I did some investigation. Apparently, the first 2 days, matzah's doraisa, perhaps. So at nighttime, matzah's doraisa. So maybe that's why. But apparently, there is a minhag of not the first 2 days. No one does last day Pesach because last day Pesach.
You want to show that it's
Right, last day Pesach is as it is. It's achron shel Pesach. It's not quote unquote really Pesach for Torah. So. When you can't eat bread, so Pesach, right? Actually, you know what you're going to be able to do? Not this year. There are years, by the way, this is what they do in Israel, where the last day of Pesach, the 8th day of Pesach, is Shabbos. So you're not in Israel, they still have to keep Pesach because they can't make a kinyan, they can't sell back to a non-Jew. But it would be permissible for an Ashkenazi to eat kinyan because it's not Pesach, and you don't sell, meaning when you have kinyan in your house, you don't sell your kinyan, right? You might put it away, but you're not selling your kidney, right? And if you have, so in theory, if the...
But if you put kidney in your pot this year...
No, you can't do it. So the question is, the kidney make before Pesach? The kidney make your food, or kidney bato b'shishim before Pesach? They might be. That's most probably, you can't do it on purpose. If by accident, let's say you use kidneyot oil. Exactly. This is very complicated. There are many oils out there. What's considered kidneyot and not kidneyot, and there's different sunflower oil and this oil and all these different types of oils that people use. They're pretty well labeled this year, from what I understand. At Sobeys. I haven't been to Sobeys yet the past 2 weeks, which I'm very happy about. But apparently, I'm sure at one point my wife will send me. So the idea of kidneyot before Pesach. My mother did this once. She bought oil. She didn't pay attention. Before Pesach, she was cooking for Pesach. She used kidneyot oil. She didn't see that it was for the ochle kidneyot pilvad. There had the Sephardi ashkacha. By the way, this year the OU has decided also to produce ashkacha just for Sephardi, the ochle kidneyot. They put the label on. It's a big market for it, apparently. These things are usually driven by consumers. And what's happened is, so before Pesach, it could be that it's bato b'shishim.
So you're talking about you eat that food...
B'diavad, right, b'diavad.
No, I'm actually asking something.
Oh, okay.
I used my Pesach crock pot 4 weeks ago, and I put quinoa in it. I I used my Pesach crock pot. That's just the cholent I was eating because we were doing something, whatever.
Okay.
We were doing kitchen.
Fine.
But I used it.
And everything else goes to Pesach.
We ate it. Yeah.
Right.
That was the cholent we were going to eat that Shabbos.
Right.
Now is that pot now I can't use it? I thought I could.
Because you thought kidney were okay for Pesach?
No, because I thought that even if I used kidney a month ago, I used kidney oils in January. It doesn't matter. I could use the pot now.
There's a lot.
Is there a problem?
Right. Whereas the
Quinoa now for it's for
that's what they said now. It's kidney oils.
right.
So it's not can you eat the food on Pesach? We've eaten the food already. We ate the food in January. Is the pot a problem now? Really, if you're I wasn't about the bashishim, right? Got a lot of kidney in there. Are we holding?
Eat at a Sephardi's house, like if they made chicken without kidney out, but they had used their pots for kidney out in the past, you would not eat
it's
at
not
their
so simple if you have to eat in pots.
Really? I've heard that they're like
totally
allowed
so,
to eat at Sephardi's house.
You are the challenge is right. Mikaradin you could eat. There are right. There are the issue is there are different minhagim when it comes to how we treat kitniyot. There are those who would say you cannot eat kitniyot, even pots that were used with kitniyot. I think it's the belief. Don't quote me on this. I believe the Magen Avraham is lenient. There's some are lenient that pots used for kitniyot. The language is. There are those who are lenient to use pots used from kitniyot. For let's say for Ashkenazim going to a Sephardi house. So there's definitely people who like to rely on.
So that's why the quinoa too.
Right. So that's what's interesting because quinoa. Really? Is that yeah?
Well,
Did they? I don't know.
I could say that it wasn't anymore.
Who did?
My mom. No, she said like I think like some I don't know.
So last I heard, and the truth is I have not had.
Okay, let's say I
now,
cook green. Okay,
this now that's it. Now I'm like now.
I cook green beans in another pot.
Right. Right. That's a good example. Green beans.
Okay, so don't eat kibroth, right? But then on the 8th day they eat kibroth specifically, right?
No, kitniyot is a much stronger minute. Yeah, kitniyot go back to the times of the Gaonim kitniyot, whereas gebrochs are like Hasidim, very modern. Although matzah shruya they've talked about for a long time, the concept of kitniyot has been around for a very long time. Yeah. Kitniyot. I think.
Right. I'm not talking about.
I've even heard that. I don't know. I heard an opinion that even if they are serving kitniyot, just don't eat it. Like you can eat the chicken just on the road. That's what I heard about it.
I'm gonna double check that.
Wait, can you check if quinoa?
So I heard that COR said it was.
That it was? Oh, was quinoa. Okay.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
No, and then I think he might have rescinded for this year. Right? For I didn't right Klapkin's pesos here?
No, but I read it somewhere that it's short allowed.
I know that here's what happened. When we contacted the OU last year, the OU has, and I have to we're gonna have to continue this next week. The OU has two people they deal with for Pesach Halacha for kashrus policy. One is Rabbi and one is Rav Shachter for the OU. So what happened? The OU was split. Rabbi felt that it was kiniyos, and Shachter felt it wasn't. So when there's a split, the policy in the OU is when their poskim are split, they cannot take a stand on an issue, and they will say we are not going to establish national policy. We're going to leave it for local vads to establish, right? And that's how they left it in the OU Pesach guide. I've downloaded the OU Pesach guide. Now we'll start. Now that last night's over, my head will be Pesach. So I'm going to start. I can bleed out, double check, and see what the story is. It's an important question to look into kitniyos and for pots and what's out there, and also for quinoa. If I'm not mistaken, I also heard that quinoa is not there. Who use their pots? Last year, 3 years ago.
Quinoa was
You're right.
definitely okay. So everyone used their pots.
The CRC gave a shkacha last year to quinoa.
Last year?
Definitely 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago? The CRC didn't give a shkacha last year?
I still had my check quinoa in my covered.
So the issue. So I spoke to somebody. Who's doing who knows someone who did a PhD in quinoa, quinoa production in China or India, and 90% of all quinoa is made from there. And they said there's no way there's any grains mixed in with this quinoa. And apparently, when CRC Givashkacha, they did it at a plant that is only a pure quinoa plant, in terms of its production, in terms of its shipping, in terms of its.
Is that the problem with
So
quinoa itself? Isn't quinoa the big problem?
Right. So the question is, the tshuva comes down to the truth is I might as well mention this because it's a great topic. The tshuva comes down to what happened in America with peanuts. All of a sudden, they had peanuts. We all know peanuts are not a nut. The bracha you make is a dama, not an eight, so it's not a nut. That's our kosher Pesach. Peanuts are not a nut, right? That's why people have peanut allergies. It's a legume. So Rav Moshe Feinstein many years ago was asked, what do we do with peanuts? And Rav Moshe said in a very famous tshuva, we do not add to the gzeira of kidneys because there's already only, you know what I mean, like a minhag. Why should we add to it? It doesn't make sense. Yet, it happens to be a fascinating tshuva because it's a landmark tshuva that Rav Moshe said something very strong, and over time, he slightly backed down, and everyone actually went against Rav Moshe. Because since peanut butter can be turned into a real flour, and is used often and treated like a flour with bread, it was banned from, it was treated with the chumrah of kinyan, and now everyone today basically says you can't have peanut butter, with the exception of, I believe, the lowest level of Rabbinut Ashkacha in Israel. There was a time when they were allowing peanuts and not calling them kidneys. There was a time. That might have even changed. I know, 10, 15 years ago, I believe that was the case. So it's fascinating, the whole kidneys thing. Maybe we'll start with that next week, and we'll continue with the kashrut. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Have a Shavua Tov.